All right, XSR900, little bit of history, little bit of modern. I like it. 3-cylinder crossplane 3 from Yamaha. They've been doing this this motor really well. People are loving the motor. So good, in fact, that it ended up in their R platform in the form of the R9, like many have been anticipating for a while, ever since the discontinuation of the R6. And you know, it kind of tells me something when a manufacturer is has an engine in something and they decide to put it into other bikes. I like to turn traction control up a little bit on these test rides just because these are not my bikes. Anybody with experience should probably be able to be cautious and not need to be the fastest guy out there right off the bat. Learn the bike. Take a second to learn the brakes and clutches if you're ever getting on a new bike, ladies and gentlemen. It always helps. But back to the bike. So yeah, for me, whenever I see a manufacturer putting a lot of different platforms with the same motor together, that usually tells you something about the motor. That probably implies that they've done a lot of work and a lot of R&D into that motor, and that it's been pretty well received to the point where they can trust multiple bikes in their lineup flopping not to flop over a bad motor. I mean, because you know, think about it. If the CP3, you know, let's go back to the CP2. Let's say the CP2 turned out to be the most unreliable motor Yamaha has ever made. Imagine how much money they'd lose after creating the R7, after creating the Tenere 700. You know, they'd pretty much want to go bankrupt if, you know, the CP2 turned out to be a crazy unreliable motor. But it's not. And you know, obviously companies wouldn't do something like that until they find out that their motor is tried and true. And the CP3 is no exception. It's now going to end up in the R9, and it's because these bikes can get a lot of mileage out of them. You know, just like most of Yamaha's lineup, you got about 26,000 miles before your first valve service, which is crazy. Now the torque on this bike is awesome. It's a 3-cylinder and it's a crossplane, so she wants to give you torque down low, but she's okay with revving out too. Whatever you like. Go ahead, you can take that. It is very quick. It's still got some power up top, so if you need to go around people, no problem. Just keep asking for power, it'll give it to you. It is a 6-speed. Oops. The horn feels very close to the turn signal button, so that's what happened there. Seating position wise, I just had the swing arm actually touch my heel. That was kind of interesting. Let's see, maneuverability wise, she definitely turns. She's not super responsive, I want to say, at high speeds, but you know, nothing to point your nose down at. You know, it feels predictable. Actually, I don't hate this position to lean off of in a... Oh, this guy's got water coming. We don't know what that is. We hope it's water. All right, let's try the brakes on this guy. Yeah, smooth. Tray a little bit of rear coming in. Easy money. Yep, torque. So yeah, this is definitely a bike that you don't necessarily need to downshift to have torque, and that's what I really like about these 3-cylinders. Is that you know, with the 4-cylinders you really have to be in that power band to get a lot of punch, right? And on these bikes it definitely feels like you can just be in whatever gear you want to be in, open the throttle, and you will find something. For me, that's really enjoyable, especially in canyons. You know, you might end up in the wrong gear on the exit of the corner if you didn't plan that corner. And you know, a lot of times it just leads to a slow, lethargic exit until finally, wow, there's all the power. Or vice versa on a twin. You know, you go in a little bit too high in the gear and you don't have enough torque, you're not low enough in the RPMs, there's nothing there. You're all up top, you need to upshift, and then finally there's your torque until about 3,000-4,000 RPM when you shift like a Harley. With this bike, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. If you chose the wrong gear, you went a little bit too high, don't worry, you got torque down low. If you chose the wrong gear, went a little bit too low, don't worry, you got torque up high. Either way, it works out, and it's understandable why you see so many 3-cylinders coming back now. You know, Triumph created a whole new 3-cylinder in the 660 and have given it to all of their bikes. I'm going to ignore the cardinal sin of the Daytona and talk about the Tiger 660 and talking about the Trident 660, both of which I actually like as bikes. Again, we're going to ignore the Daytona for now. Look at Moto 2. They've replaced the Honda CBR600 599cc with a 765 3-cylinder also from Triumph. Seems to be working pretty okay for them. Yeah. This bike definitely has very firm suspension. I would compare it more to a sport bike rather than a sport touring bike. You know, she's okay with leaning though. She definitely responds. I will say a higher speed is a little bit more tough, but I can't completely knock it. It's still a naked bike. And by the way, I forgot to mention, on the highway, you know, wind, it's definitely there, but you're in sort of a forward position, so I feel prepared to deal with the wind, which is a big thing for me. You know, after riding street bobs, I know what it's like to have no wind protection and, you know, feel like your body is unprepared to accept that wind. You know, this one, it definitely leans you into the wind, which gives you some leverage. You don't feel like you're getting pushed back against the wind and, you know, almost getting knocked off the bike. This bike's pretty comfortable. I can imagine riding this pretty much all day. Yeah, this thing is butter smooth. You know, and just to show you, 6th gear, I'm on the street. Roll on, accelerate. Down low torque, upper end power, it's all there on a 3-cylinder. If it's not a Triumph, you got to do it Yamaha. And Yamaha is the only Japanese manufacturer that I know of that still makes a 3-cylinder. Not many know Suzuki once had a 3-cylinder 2-stroke. Once in a time. It's a nice Challenger right there. So, final impressions on this Yamaha XSR900. It's a very, very modern touched retro bike. This does not feel like you're on a retro bike. You know, it's not like the Triumph Speed Twins or anything where you can definitely, you know, feel some of the older technique in motorcycle building. No, this bike feels very refined. It definitely feels much more smooth. Which, by the way, Triumph Bonneville's great platform. You know, I'm talking about more of the where the weight is laid out in the Bonneville feels older. Yeah, no, this bike definitely feels modern. It feels like an MT-09 just dressed up. Definitely the tank is different, obviously, but the power is not different. This is a Hoon bike. It can be converted into somewhat of a sport bike if you put the right suspension in there. I've definitely heard the forks are lacking for anything like that. Final impressions, yeah, this bike was everything I thought it would be. Brakes are okay. Nah, brakes are fine. You can find this bike online, ONYXMOTO.com. Come check her out.